Welcome to this presentation from NAIFA, the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. My name is Brendan Burnett, and I am NAIFA's Director of Professional Development. And today we are presenting Making LinkedIn Work for You. Activate and amplify your personal brand to move business forward. And with us today is David D. Fisher. He is a recognized expert in finding professional success through personal relationships. He is a sought-after speaker, coach, and trainer, and he builds on 20 years of experience as a sales professional and entrepreneur. He is the president of Rockstar Consulting. He lives in Evanston, Illinois. And in addition to his many credentials, David is, of course, an expert on LinkedIn marketing, as I saw an example of today concerning this webinar. And thrilled to have David with us today. He's going to discuss social media, which has become a key tool for business development. But David wonders, are you taking advantage of all the opportunities that it provides? You'll need to establish a credible presence and build a network online. And today, through this presentation, David will help you leverage social media to build your professional influence. We are going to have the presentation followed by a period for questions and answers, and you may ask your questions through the chat box or the question box on the bottom of your screen. David, welcome to the webinar.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And thank you to everybody for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, wherever you are around the country and maybe even the world. Gotta love the internet. And luckily, I didn't have to even leave my home office to work with you. Really excited to be with you today and share some ideas about how you can use digital communication, social media, and specifically LinkedIn to help develop strong relationships, more relationships, and really to use it as a tool to connect with your prospects, with your existing clients, and really move business forward. And that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so what you're going to find out today is that LinkedIn is very much a tool that you can use in a lot of different ways to help you accomplish the goals that you have for yourself. One thing I want to make sure is clear right from the very beginning, I am not going to tell you that you have to do LinkedIn a certain way or digital communication a certain way to be successful. That'd be like me saying there's only one way to use the phone or one way to email people. Rather, there are, again, a lot of different paths that we can take. You have to figure out the one that's comfortable for you, but also you have to find out the one that's effective for you. And so really, that is our goal in this time here today. And as Brendan said, if you have questions, please, we are going to have some time at the end to answer your specific individual questions, or if there's something I say that you want me to dive into more, please use the chat box to jot those questions down, and we will get to those at the end. You don't have to wait till the end to ask them, put them in right away so you don't forget. So let's do this. Let's dive in and talk about building stronger relationships using these online tools we have. And before we look at the platform itself, I want to create a little context because I think professionals make a mistake when they look at LinkedIn, for example, as just something that's on their to-do list, right? Just, oh, I've got all these things I've got to do today. I've got to check off the box because I was told that I have to do it. That's not the case at all. And in fact, what we're going through, maybe definitely as business professionals, but maybe even as a society, we're going through an evolution. Things are changing quite a bit. And obviously, a lot of that is being driven by technology. And one of the suggestions I'm going to make to you today is that we need to rethink about what our role is in our conversations and in the way that we help our clients. No longer are we the sole providers of information, but rather we need to become the guides that help our prospects and clients through their journey, right? We have to be the knowledgeable, trusted advisor that can help them make the best decisions for them, the best decisions for their family, and make them effectively, efficiently, and without making a huge error. And so that's why, as you even saw on that title screen, I call it being a sales Sherpa. Our job is to be the guide, to be the person that helps the prospect or clients up the mountain, right? We know where they want to go. We've been to the mountaintop before, and we want to help bring them along. And the reason why I'm starting with this idea is because, again, something like LinkedIn, whether it's creating a great profile or sharing content and marketing ourselves, it's not something that's done in a vacuum, but rather we need to put that in the right context where we are using this, as I said, a way to help people up that mountain. And I've been working with financial professionals around social media and LinkedIn for over a decade now. And what's really interesting is to see that there has definitely been this desire on the part of some professionals to really embrace these new functionalities and these new tools that we have. And there's definitely, I think, been some resistance. A lot of that has stemmed from just the fact that change is never that comfortable, or maybe things have been going well for you up to this point. But what we have to understand is that the world is shifting. And one of the things I like to talk to financial audiences about specifically is something that you might be familiar with. And that's the great wealth transfer. And you might have heard this term before, and it's a very fancy title for the fact that as the baby boomers age and get older and unfortunately pass on, the accumulated wealth that they have, the money they have, is going to pass on to the next generation. Now, there's quite a bit on the line here, and I've seen a bunch of different numbers, but for example, this is from Sorelli Associates, and I'm sorry, it's November 2018. I just realized, not November 2019. That would be pretty awesome if they could put out something in the future. But this is a report that came out in November 2018. They figured that there was about $48 trillion in wealth and assets that the baby boomers have, and that will eventually trickle down into the next generation. Now, why is this important? And what does this have to do with LinkedIn? Well, understand that as they pass on their wealth to the next generation and their assets to the next generation, it's going to be important to help that next generation manage those assets and be the trusted advisor. Well, if you want to do that, if you want to be that trusted advisor, you have to communicate with that next generation in the way that they want. And understand that right now, almost 2/3 of the next generation, they plan on moving their assets somewhere else. They don't necessarily plan on working with the same financial professionals that their parents did, right? So if you have gotten to the point where maybe you're like, oh, I've got a great book of business, I've got a great set of clients that I'm working with, I'm set, that could change pretty dramatically, and not necessarily overnight, but pretty close to it. What's also very interesting, because I hear this pushback that a lot of, especially veteran professionals are like, well, but the next generation, the millennials, the kids, they don't even want to talk to professional advisors. They just want to do everything online. What's also interesting is that that's not the case. In fact, research done by LinkedIn themselves finds out that the next generation does have a lot of value in social networks. So this is talking specifically about the fact that millennials, Gen Xers, kind of what we're talking about is digital natives, people who grew up with technology. They definitely do want to make sure that their social networks, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all of these different platforms are important. If you see with affluent millennials, 90% of them feel that their social networks are a must-have for they're getting information, they're getting advice and influence. So you might go, oh, wow, that's true. Social networks are what's really important. It's just their peers, but that's actually not the case, because what they've also found is that affluent millennials and affluent Gen Xers, so this is basically anybody who's above the age of about 27 right now, you'll notice that a financial advisor is not unimportant, right? In fact, the younger generation, the millennials, they think that 87% of them think that an advisor would be nice to have, or in fact, 37% a must have, right? So they definitely value having somebody in their life that can help guide them along. at the same time, we talk about those social networks, it's also a very busy world. Right now, and this is actually from 2016, this is the most recent statistics that we can get. If you think about how busy and noisy the world is, incredibly busy and noisy, and it's just going to get worse. In fact, right now, this is again from 2016, you'll see that 400 hours of YouTube video are uploaded every week. I'm sorry, that would be crazy, right? 400 every week, every hour. And in fact, I do know that that statistic is outdated. YouTube has come out to say that there's 500 hours of video uploaded every hour, right? Crazy amounts, like 205 million emails every minute. All of this activity online, all this information that's getting passed around, that is what your prospects, that is what the clients that you already work with, that's what they're dealing with. And what's interesting is that the more information we have, we've also found out that the poorer our decision-making is. This is really interesting data from Sheena Iyengar, who's one of the leading researchers on choice. And what they found is that if you give people more choices, right, more information, more options, they actually don't make better choices, right? In fact, this is a very specific study where they were tracking what would happen as far as participation rates in a 401k program based on how many funds were offered. And so you'll notice that as we go from the left to the right, the more funds that were offered, the less participation there was, because people were overwhelmed. And that's what our prospects, that's what our clients, that's what the people that we interact with on a daily basis. In fact, that's often what we ourselves are dealing with. We're dealing with this overwhelm. Now, why am I starting here? Again, that context is really important. I'm not here to tell you that LinkedIn is this tool that you have to be on 3 hours a day, or it's the end all be all. But what it is it's a very powerful way that we have of entering a conversation that is already happening, right? We talked about all of that activity that's already going on. But now we have a way of really positioning ourselves in that ongoing current of information and conversation, and positioning ourselves as a true resource. And LinkedIn is a powerful way to make that happen. So let's look at how we're going to then understand this broader context and get very specific tactically how you on a daily basis can use this tool called LinkedIn to have better conversations, to maybe start new conversations and continue the conversations that you've already built, both in the offline and online world. And so really I want to look today at 3 areas. So I really think to make LinkedIn work for you, there's 3 things to look at. One is, how do we use it to create access? To create access to the people we want to talk to. And also, even if we've started that relationship, to put ourselves in front of them to earn a little bit of their attention, right? Because attention is truly the currency of the day. The second thing we want to do is talk about how do you clarify your brand online. And we're going to really talk about your personal brand. We'll talk about your profile here and other ways that you can share the message that you want to share. Because the clearer you are about how you serve people, who you serve, why people should want to engage with you, the more clear you are, the more likely you are to stand out in this age of information overwhelm. And then finally, we want to talk about how do you then take that message and not only make sure that it's clear if somebody comes in and approaches you, but how you are sharing that out and how you are putting yourself in front of people on a regular basis and making yourself the trusted advisor, whether or not they need that help now or in the future. You know, one of the things I talk to people a lot about when I mention the idea of being a sales Sherpa is that we don't control sales conversations any longer. Now, 20, 30 years ago, if you were in any sort of sales or influencing capacity, you often did have some control over the process because you had control over the information. But now, because people have access to information, really all they have to do is pull out their cell phone and they have access to the collected knowledge of the world. We don't have that control as much anymore. So rather, we have to really walk alongside them and be the guide that takes them where they want to go. So let's look at these three areas. And so the first thing I want to talk about is how to plant those seeds of access. And what I'm going to talk to you today is about becoming a micro influencer. And we often think about influencers, or maybe you've heard that term before, and it often is used to refer to, for example, celebrities, right? Somebody on Twitter, the Kardashians or something like that. And I think that often then we go, oh, I want to be like that. I want to be an influencer. But let me suggest that all of us do want to be an influencer to our direct network, the people that we want to engage with. Again, prospects, customers, partners, colleagues, vendors, centers of influence, that network that's around you. This actually is an old snapshot of my LinkedIn network, right? And these are the people that I want to influence, because not only is there power in influencing them, but also they're all connected. They're the centers of their own networks. And I am just one step away from a multitude of people that I can serve and that I can help. So that's what we want to look at, is how do we become micro influencers? And this is definitely a place where building your LinkedIn network is incredibly valuable. And briefly, I want to talk about something called the strength of weak ties, because I get this question all the time. And in fact, I'm sure some of you have this: who should be in my network, right? What should my LinkedIn network be comprised of? You probably get random invites every once in a while. I get 3 to 5 a day. In fact, just before we jumped on the call, I got 2 from India. Should I invite those people into my network? Should my clients, should my prospective clients, should my partners, should the people I used to work with, should my neighbors, should these people be in my network? Well, one way of answering that is to think about the fact that there's some really interesting research done by a guy named Mark Granovetter. And he wrote one of the most cited papers ever in sociology. It's titled The Strength of Weak Ties. And what he found was that the people that we get jobs through, right? Or rather, we often get jobs through people that we know. But what he also found is that we often get jobs through people that we know only a little bit. What he called a weak tie, somebody that we saw less than once a week. So it wasn't our best friends, it wasn't our family, it was the friend we run into every couple months. It was the friend that we run into a conference twice a year. So those are the people that have access to other information. And so what LinkedIn is actually giving us the opportunity to do is connect with those weak connections and stay on their radar, stay in front of them with not a lot of effort. So I really think that one of the things you want to do is look for ways that you can expand your network. And I call it planting seeds. And so understand that you can begin a conversation with anybody in the online world from both online and offline means, right? So you can definitely, if you are, let's say, newer into the business and you're building up your book of business, you could do cold emails or cold calls. You could also do cold social outreach, find somebody on LinkedIn. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you can also research people and research the best people for you to reach out to. You can definitely have like just in-person conversations, meeting people at professional events, meeting people at conferences, at a Chamber of Commerce networking breakfast or the like. You can definitely engage with people who are not in your network, but who you run into in online circumstances. You can be introduced to people. You can obviously be referred to people. One of the most common ways that financial professionals find new business is through referrals. LinkedIn doesn't replace that. LinkedIn actually just enhances and adds that. It adds to, even in-person introductions. But there's a lot of different ways that we can build our network on LinkedIn so that we do have access to influencing them now and in the future. And as far as a simple rubric to use to decide who to connect with and who not to, I don't usually put anything like that up because, again, we all have different goals. But here's something that I use, and if this makes sense to you, run with it, right? Because your LinkedIn network is your network. It's personal to you. But here's what I'd say. If somebody is in Chicago, that's where I am, and they reach out to me, I'll connect with them. If they're in the same industry that I'm in sales, or they're a writer like me or a speaker like me, I'll connect with them. If there's an overlap of the two, then I'll connect them. I might even send them a quick message, right? And so that allows me to invite many people into my network, and I absolutely have no problem reaching out to people that I meet in the, offline world if I'm at an event or something, or just maybe I see a post of theirs that they like, and that's totally fine with me. But that's allowed me to build a good network of weak connections. But again, it's not overwhelming, and it's also not full of kind of empty connections. And if you do want to build your network right now, if you're looking at your network going, hey, I've got 200 people, which if you've been in the professional world for even just a couple of years, you should be well over 200, probably over that 500 mark that LinkedIn stops counting at. One of the easiest ways that I think people can start building their network is actually going to LinkedIn, and in the upper left-hand corner, you have that search button, and you can actually search for people based on a whole bunch of different parameters: where they live, if you're, like, say, a second level or third level connection, their title, different keywords. And this is a way where you can get very specific about who you want in your network. Maybe you work with a specific industry or people in a specific field. You work with entrepreneurs, business owners, doctors, whoever it might be. You can do a quick search. And then, once you have that list, you can just reach out to someone and say, hey, I want to reach out because, and it might be because I saw that you are, you live here in Chicago and you're in the sales world. I'll do that often. I'll say, hey, I see that you're another sales leader here in Chicago, and you would love to be connected with you. But the screen has a number of different ways that you might run into people. It could be meeting at an event. It could be seeing that you have a shared connection. But there is some way that you want to reach out to people, and you want to give people a reason why they should connect. In general, you don't want to just blindly reach out to somebody, like just hit connect. Because again, why should they connect? Yes, you might get that connection, but it's not really valuable. And after somebody does connect with you, I think it's really valuable to send them a quick message. And by the way, one thing I want to point out, I'm going to make sure that you have access to these slides after our call. I know we're going to go through these quickly. And in fact, some of them are in here specifically so that you can look at them after the call. So I'll work with Brennan, and we'll make sure that you do have access to these. So you don't have to feel like you're scribbling these down quickly. But even just starting that conversation, notice that one thing I'm not telling you to do is, hey, if somebody connects, then reach out and try to be like, hey, can we have a meeting right away? Or, hey, can I have some of your time? Because you haven't quite earned it yet, right? But we've got to get them into our network first, right? And so I often tell people that one of the best ways that you can make people feel comfortable with you is to start the conversation, right? And let's say you use LinkedIn and you start that engagement with them. A lot of times they're expecting you to try to reach out and sell them. And this is really prevalent on LinkedIn as a platform. There's a lot of salespeople who will reach out, see who connects with them, and then they'll just send them a sales pitch. Buck the trend, beat their expectations. Say, hey, it was great meeting you. If I can be of service, if I can be a resource, let me know. But then just let that relationship kind of simmer a little bit, and maybe even put a note, hey, I'm going to reach back out to this person in 2 months, 3 months down the line. Once we've kind of built up a little social capital. So those give you a few ideas of who should be in your network, and you've got to plant those seeds first. But then we've got them in our network. What are we sharing with them? What information are we sharing? And so I want to talk about how do you really clarify your brand and clarify your message on LinkedIn. And so it's really interesting about this next section. I will say that, and I often do for audiences, that if you never want to post on LinkedIn, totally okay. I think you miss out on some opportunities, but you can still have a vibrant business and never post ever on LinkedIn. But if you don't have a good LinkedIn profile, you are shooting yourself in the foot. And the reason why is because our presence on a platform like LinkedIn is passive, meaning when we put it out there, people are going to digest it and find that information on their own terms, not ours, right? So if somebody's looking you up online and they're finding a half filled out LinkedIn profile or one that you haven't done anything with in 4 years, you might want to tell them, hey, I just don't use LinkedIn very much. But they don't see that. They just see bad information, and they're making a judgment about you as a professional based on that. It's probably not the one you want to see. So again, no matter what your perspective, what your viewpoint is on being socially active online, this is a section that you got to get right. So I want to talk to you about how to optimize your profile. And this is really about sharing the brand that is you. If you think about what your LinkedIn profile is, it is your personal, professional website, right? You might have a company website. In fact, most companies do have a website. But this is the website that's all about who you are as a professional. And so you want to get it right. And I think that a good online presence, and definitely a good LinkedIn profile, really answers 5 questions for customers. So an optimized profile helps people understand what problems does this person solve. It helps them understand who this person serves. So I'm reading this profile. I want to know who this person serves. All right. How I could further engage with the person I'm reading about, where I can get more information if I am interested, if I want to find out more. And maybe the most important question, why should I reach out to this person who I'm reading about as opposed to someone else who solves the same problem for the same people? Now, I don't know specifically about your business. I don't know everybody on the call here today, but my guess is that you are not unique. Maybe you're unique like a snowflake, like really close up, but from 6 feet, you kind of look the same. And financial products and services, while there's definitely variety and a broad spectrum, there is somebody else who will help your prospects and your clients just like you will, with the same challenges, with the same problems. Your job is to show why they should engage with you as opposed to someone else. And this is actually where I think a lot of financial professionals really drop the ball, because they think to themselves, well, you know, I think business is fine. I don't think there's a problem with my online presence, so why bother working on it? But the reality is nobody is calling you and saying, hey, I looked at your LinkedIn profile, I wasn't that impressed, and I just wanted to let you know that that's why I'm not going to work with you. Rather, what happens is you never hear from that person at all. They opt out of your funnel right from the very beginning. And understand, even if you think that all of your business comes from referral, I get referrals all the time for a wide variety of products and services. Guess what I do before I ever reach out to the person I'm referred to? I check them out, right? I check them out. And so if a friend tells me, hey, you should really talk to this person, yeah, that's going to be a big check in the plus column of why I'm going to work with them, but I'm still going to do my own research, because again, I have the ability to do that maybe I didn't 10, 20 years ago, right? You know, if you were going to go buy a big screen TV right now or a car right now, would you just show up on the lot or go to the Best Buy and just listen to whatever the salesperson told you? No, you do some research beforehand. So you want to make sure that the people you work with can do good research on as well. And so the question always is, you know, would you do business with yourself? And I wanted to put my friend Joey Davenport. I know he's very involved with NAIF. I want to put him on the spot here. This is Joey's got a great LinkedIn profile. I've definitely vetted him for it a little bit here. He's a neighbor here in the Chicago area. But you know, here's the question to ask. Go to your LinkedIn profile. Again, not putting anybody on the spot, and just ask yourself, if I didn't know me, if I'm walking in, you know, as a stranger, and I saw the profile that is my profile, would I feel comfortable talking to that person? Would I want to reach out? Would I want to have a conversation with them? Am I comfortable with this person? Are they expressing credibility? Are they saying, hey, this is why you should talk to me as opposed to somebody else? Because if not, we got some work to do. And as I mentioned before, this doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether or not you want to do this. Using another friend of mine, Sylvain Tappelman out of the Pacific Financial Group, you know, I did a Google search for him, just his name, and he's got a relatively unique name, but you could do this with a common name in your city. Try this, Google yourself and see what comes up. Your LinkedIn profile will be on the first page. It will probably be, just as Sylvain's was here, one of the top 3 results. So again, even if you don't want to put a lot of effort into your social media presence, people are looking for your information and making a judgment based on you. So that's why we've got to make sure we get this right. And one of the things you can do to make sure you get it right before you ever start is to ask yourself 3 questions. I really encourage you, after our call, sometime in the next week, ask yourself these questions, write the answers down. But ask yourself, what is your business goal? Are you trying to grow your book of business? Are you trying to help a certain type of clientele? Are you looking to move into a new industry or a new field? Whatever it is, be very specific about what your goal is. Be very specific about who the most important audience is for you to speak to. So I talk to a lot of financial advisors who work with a very specific group who they've really kind of developed an expertise. Well, if that's the case, then know, like, hey, these are the people that I want to talk to. Hey, I am focused on working with family-run small businesses between $1 and $10 million in business annually. All right, very specific, but then you know who that audience is. And that's important because then you can speak directly to them with language, with terms, with ideas and solutions that are important and resonant to them. And then finally ask yourself, how do I want them to see me, right? So what is the brand that I want to share? All right, so before you think the tactics, we got to think the strategy. So that will help you come up with a LinkedIn strategy. Now, looking at the tactics here, one thing very important, and you want to make sure you get this right. If you're going to do a lot of changes on your LinkedIn profile, you might have seen this when somebody else all of a sudden has a bunch of so-and-so's got a new job and they have new education. They're basically making some updates and it's getting blasted to their entire network. You can stop LinkedIn from broadcasting those changes that you're making. And this shows you where it's in the privacy setting. That's accessed through the, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, where your picture is on the LinkedIn platform, there's a drop down, it'll say settings and privacy. This is where you can change that. All right, so I just wanted to go down to where it says sharing profile edits, click on that, and it'll allow you to turn it off, which you want to do. And I do want to talk about something else here, which is really important, specifically for this audience, is, hey, compliance is a very real and very important concern. Now, I'm going to say a few things that are, they're blanket statements because everybody on the call, you might be in a different industry, different field, you might have different licenses and certifications, you might be under different jurisdictions, you might be in different states. So what I can tell you is this. FINRA and SEC, so I want to talk about them and understand, like, if you're with a broker dealer, for example, they might have other rules. But FINRA and SEC makes the distinction between what they call static and dynamic content. And they're very okay, by the way, with social media as you follow the rules. And so what you have to do is static content. So for example, the LinkedIn profile, what we're talking about today, like a website, that's static content. It follows the same rules that any advertising would, meaning if you can't make any claims to results, for example, or you can't have testimonials, right? If you want to put it on your website, just don't put it on your LinkedIn profile. And then they also say that if you are going to post, you have to have archiving of that, just like you do for your email and your texting. And then you do have to follow the same rules with static advertising, as far as you can't make untrue claims, you can't obviously guarantee results. Anything you wouldn't say, again, on a website, just don't say it on LinkedIn. Within that, and by the way, you do have to have disclaimers, and I'll show you where to put those in just a moment on your profile. But besides that, you can engage fully on LinkedIn. Again, your broker dealer or another governing body that you're involved with, they might have different rules, but those aren't FINRA and SEC rules. Those are the rules that your governing body has put in place. And understand, they're just trying to keep you safe. What I do suggest is work with the people that are in charge of compliance, and don't work against them. I've actually spoken often with heads of compliance, VPs of compliance, all different people involved with this process. They're trying to keep up with all the changes just like everybody else is, but really they just want to keep you safe and keep your clients safe. So again, don't be antagonistic. Go, hey, this is, I want to get more involved with LinkedIn. Help me do that, right? Help me use these tools to communicate. So If you have any specific questions about that, more than happy to talk either at the end of our call today, or you're more than welcome to reach out to me. But let's look at the three big areas of your LinkedIn profile that you've got to get right to make sure you're sharing your message. And the three that I want to talk about are your headline, your images, and your summary. Now, your headline comes right after your picture, and it's really easy to let that be the default, which is your current position. But your current position might not help a reader really understand what you do and how you help. If it just says account executive, financial professional, financial agent, insurance agent, right? There's a lot of different ways of naming this. That doesn't help them at all. What you really want to do is think in terms of the people you serve. So what I suggest is that you actually have it say, helping blank with blank, where the first blank is who you help, and the second blank is how you help them. Now, this is a template just for brainstorming. The verb helping can definitely be changed. But to give you some examples, these are ones that other professionals have used. Helping retirees and pre-retirees secure their financial future. Showing business owners how to pass their business to the next generation. Giving first responders a roadmap for financial security. Providing medical professionals with a clear guide to building wealth, I don't know what that is, wealth, and securing their legacy. Again, just some examples, but these are people, obviously they have a very specific audience that they're trying to speak to, and then they have a very clear way that they're helping that audience. Why this is important is because it allows that target audience, the people that you want to engage with, it's keyword optimization for the human brain. That first one, if I'm a retiree or if I'm a pre-retiree and I read that, I think, oh, this person wants to help me. All right. If I'm a first responder, if I'm a firefighter, if I'm a police officer and I see giving first responders a roadmap for financial security, I think, oh, great, this person is talking to me. I'm going to pay attention. Right. And we start to build that bond right from the very beginning, right from the top of your LinkedIn profile. And that's what the headline does. It grabs attention and it sets the tone for what they can expect as they're reading through and getting a chance to know more about you. And this, again, I've got some worksheets in here that you can use. Figure out, brainstorm, who do I help? And brainstorm, how do I help them? And figure out the best way of bringing those two things together. Second thing I want to suggest to you is make sure your photo is good. You actually have two images up at the top of your LinkedIn profile. The first is your headshot. Very, very important. I think that you should always have a headshot that has three characteristics. It should be approachable, it should be polished, and it should be consistent. Approachable means that, I can have a conversation with a person in this photo. They're smiling. They look friendly, right? You can't overstate that. I think there's definitely this trend this is dudes who think they have to be tough in their LinkedIn profile, or oh, stern. No. We have to be engaging. That's what we actually have, these brains that are wired to recognize and engage with human faces. So smile, be open. There's a reason why babies smile. In fact, if a baby smiles, you want to smile right back. So make sure you're approachable. Make sure it's polished. Polished doesn't necessarily mean a kind of traditional headshot. Sylvain has one here of him in a shirt and tie and suit, because in his role as a leader in financial services, that's what people expect. He looks good. That's fantastic. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be as traditional, but it should look like a credible, high quality photo. Again, this is a person who is a credible professional that I'm looking at. And that gets to that third part, which is consistent. Is the person I'm looking at in the photo, are they what I'm reading about? If you say in your profile, I go all out to help my customers and do everything I can to help them, and there's nothing actually about hard work in your photo, meaning it's you on a beach, it's not good, right? So these are all photos I found on LinkedIn, and you've seen all of these different ones. Just to point out, there's some that are good. So here's in the top middle, this is Angus Haggerty, who runs Dell for Europe. Nice professional photo in front of some of their products. In the upper right, we have a guy with his family. This actually is an insurance agent. I kind of like it because he's saying, hey, this is my family, I want to protect yours. But I also you want to have a good face, so that people can recognize your face right from the very beginning. The bottom center, we have everything that's wrong about a LinkedIn photo. It's suggestive clothing at a party. It's casual. There's alcohol involved, right? You want to stay away from that. But think about, what do the 1,000 words that we say a picture is worth, what do they say about you? And also maximize your banner photo. It's like a billboard, right? That's one area Sylvain needs to work on because he's got nothing there. But you could add, there's a ton of options here. You could put a picture of your team. You could put a picture that is resonant and similar to your industry around, whether it's financial services, insurance. You talk about the types of people you serve here again, but set that first impression powerfully. And finally, the third part, which we could spend an hour talking about, but we don't have that. So I'm going to just give you a couple ideas, and that's your summary. Here's the deal. Your LinkedIn profile is not your resume. It is your chance on your personal professional website to speak directly to your target audience. So I'm going to suggest 3 very simple paragraphs. The first is to tell people what you do. It can be, I sit down and help people with their financial planning. I help them manage risk. I help them grow wealth, whatever it might be. The second is your differentiator. What makes you different? Is it your passion, your experience, the products and services that you provide, your perspective? Whatever it might be, talk about that, because they can't know until you tell them. And then finally, add in a personal statement. And this is where we humanize ourselves a little bit. And you'll see, this is actually my profile. You'll see that I talk about the fact that I played drums for a long time. It's where I got my nickname, and it's a nickname that pretty much everybody uses except for my wife and my mom. But so I put that out there. You could share something personal. It doesn't have to be a long list. This isn't an online dating profile. But even just sharing, hey, I really enjoy doing this. This is a favorite hobby. This is something that's important to me. This is a nonprofit organization I'm really involved with because it's something that I'm passionate about. But share something that, again, makes you a human being. All right. And we got another example in there. And again, I've put some worksheets so that you can come up with some ideas. So just write 4 sentences here that describe what you do, that describe your differentiator, that describe a personal statement, and you can put those together and add them into a really nice summary. It doesn't have to be long, but it's got to be clear. The last part I want to talk about is the experience sections, right? So your current and previous roles. I think each of these should have a very short description, all right? You can throw multimedia right in here, and this is what I wanted to point out. Obviously, I don't have compliance requirements because I'm not certified or licensed. You probably do. This is where FINRA and SEC says that compliance notifications, disclaimers should be. They should be right in your experience section. So I did want to make sure that we emphasize that. And really what you're doing in the experience section is just saying, so what? Why should people care? Why should people listen to you? This is where you establish credibility. Again, your experience section is not your resume, but rather the narrative of your career. And so this is how you can actually share that narrative. And then in the last few minutes, so and this always happens, right? How do we actually communicate our message through LinkedIn? And there's a lot of different ways of doing this. Again, I kind of work on that profile optimization because you got to get that right, whether or not you want to be on LinkedIn. But what if you do that and you're like, hey, and I really want to engage with people. I want to connect with that, those weak connections. How do I do it? Well, understand that our presence on LinkedIn, we're trying to answer 3 questions for people. Why they have a problem, right? How they can solve the problems that they have, and who they should choose to help solve those problems, right? So when we think about posting content and engaging, what we want to do is position ourselves as somebody who can answer those 3 questions for people. And in doing so, we're going back to a very old school offline saying, which you've probably heard, that all things being equal, people like to do business with those they know, like, and trust. And so we're building that know, like, and trust, in this case, in the online world. And so a couple easy things you can do, and again, we could talk about this for hours, but just a couple things you can do right away. First of all, use your news feed. If you think about going to LinkedIn, you have that news feed of everything else that the people in your network have posted. They're sharing what's important to them. So what a great way of listening, of paying attention, of hearing what's important to them and finding ways to engage with it, right? Liking things, commenting, sharing, right? They actually just came out with this on LinkedIn where there's now 5 different ways that people can engage. They can say that they like it, they celebrate it, they love something, they think it's insightful, or they're curious. What a great way for you on a regular basis just to engage with what people are sharing. As Dale Carnegie said, you can make more friends in 2 months being interested in other people than you can in 2 years trying to get other people interested in you. So even just listening in and listening to what they're talking about, finding ways that you might be able to serve them. Oh, if somebody just changed jobs, I wonder if this is a good time to help them out. In a couple days, for example, I will be posting one photo only of my new son, who's not here yet, but he's due on July 1st. So, if somebody saw that, it'd be like, oh, I see you're adding to your family. That's a life moment. Maybe I can help you with your financial needs. Now, by the way, everybody, I'm set. But again, you might see that in your network. And then finally, sharing your own content. What we want to do, sorry to go past that, is share content that creates insights. And so it's not just sharing information, but sharing ways for people to make more and better decisions. I just want to map this out, how this could look, right? And it's not just you get a referral to somebody or you find somebody to talk to, you call them and have a meeting. This is what it looks like these days. There's all these opportunities to have digital one-on-one sharing, whether it's emails or sending a LinkedIn message or calling them or sending them an email, sending out a broadcast message, meaning you just have a post on LinkedIn like the one Brandon saw this morning that we're talking about this webinar. There's so many different ways that we can now engage with people. And so here's just a suggestion. If you really want to dive into LinkedIn, here's how you could post once a day. And here's what you could post about. And never be boring, always be engaging to your audience, and never repeat yourself. And it's pretty easy. If you don't want to go from 0 to 5 a week, pick 2 days. Say, hey, you know what? On Tuesday, I'm going to share a video or a photo, and Thursday, a professional development article. Or hey, on Wednesdays, I'm going to talk about a client success story. You do have to be careful with compliance issues here, but you can definitely craft that in a certain way. Or talk about products, or just maybe a financial industry article. Depending on your organization, you might have access to the content that the marketing team develops. Lots of different ways. But again, what it does is it puts you in front of people on a regular basis, positions you as an expert, and positions you as the person that they want to go to for that trusted advice. Now, we went through a lot today, and I know there's probably some questions. So I want to pause for a second before we finish up and take these last few minutes to answer any of those questions. And Brendan, I'm trying to find the chat box with the questions here. If you have any that came in, if you want to ask any of them that came in. I know some may go directly to you, but any questions so far from anybody? If you do have questions, again, make sure you jump them into those that chat box there.
Well, David, I think that our participants are still formulating their questions, but this was a very insightful presentation. And one of the things that I found most interesting was your discussion of the look of your profile picture. Guilty as charged. I have one of the meanest, scariest profile pictures.
I wasn't calling anybody out.
That anyone has on LinkedIn. So maybe if I'm going to do a career change to a bodyguard, I'd be okay. But otherwise, I may need to take a look at that and update that a bit. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, and again, I think it's important that we feel comfortable. A lot of times it's the first time we meet somebody isn't face-to-face, right? It is, I'll do a quick, I do this all the time if I have a coffee meeting. I look them up on LinkedIn so I know to recognize them when they come in. So yeah, having that smile can be a really powerful first impression. I'm writing a note to follow up with you.
Yes, you'll be my accountability partner on that. Thank you.
For sure.
So one of the other things I've noticed about LinkedIn is I don't want to call it invasive, but man, you really can't do anything on LinkedIn without telling the world about it, or at least all your followers, unless you go into some type of incognito mode.
Right.
Why do you think that is, that it's just so notification happy as a platform?
Well, so unfortunately, here's the probably one of the not so fun answers.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, like every other social media platform, is trying to get your attention, right? Because that's how they make money. The more people that are on the platform, the more eyeballs they have, the more advertising they can sell, and the more money they make. So that's kind of Yeah, if you look at the root of it. That being said, though, what I really do encourage people to do, I shared, for example, how to change the broadcasts about your profile. 5 minutes spent in your settings and privacy page, there are a lot of tools to really harness that and focus that so that you do kind of get rid of like the ridiculous notifications. Even as simple as, I use LinkedIn on my phone, but I've turned off the notifications, right? So that it doesn't send any pings if somebody's messaged me or if there's something that's happened. Because I also make sure that I go to LinkedIn like once or twice a day, but that gives me the control back. So I think that that's part of it. And yeah, it just makes you be a little smart about what you post as well.
Absolutely. Clearly, if you're in the business world, the professional world, you simply cannot afford not to be on LinkedIn. And
Absolutely. And, I think that especially, this audience, I love talking with financial professionals around these topics because this is an industry that is relationship based, right? It always has been, it always will be. And I think there's this fear that technology is going to really make it transaction based. But the reality is, as you said, if you can really harness these tools, it changes things. It changes how we interact and how we engage and how we build relationships, but it doesn't change that core being of the engagement with our clients, which is relational.
yeah,
And and I love it. And I have found this in my own career where I can have an engagement with somebody. In fact, just last month I was speaking for a group of financial professionals in Seattle. The last time I was with this group was 5 years ago, right? And I haven't talked really much to the leadership there, but they've seen my LinkedIn posts, vice versa. And so it's very easy to start the conversation. And they're like, hey, now we need you to come back in. It was great. And that's really, I think, how financial professionals can use it to have that light touch with their prospects, with their clients, with their sphere of influence.
Yeah, and clearly it can make a large difference. I mean, it's one thing to be on LinkedIn, just showing the flag, just having a profile saying you're there. But yes, there are tens of thousands of other advisors on LinkedIn. But if you're using it in an engaged manner, that's going to make all the difference.
Absolutely. And, you don't have to try to influence everybody. But as I say, just plant a flag in your little corner. Hey, this is what I'm about. Just this morning, talking to someone who is in the video email game, right? So there's an explosion of platforms where you can make little videos and send them by email. There's many, many of these platforms. It's the new, they're all trying to be the next Zoom. But the reality is I like him and I like his company because he puts out content, right? And he shares like, hey, this is stuff that I'm doing. This is how I use videos. He's really engaging, and he's, somebody who I'm actually working on an article for LinkedIn's blog about video emails. I reach out to him as opposed to his 50 other competitors. And that's, I think, what financial professionals can do as well.
Very cool. One thing, David, that you talked about very early in your presentation was these very odd requests for connections from people that you don't know. Or perhaps they're in your industry, perhaps not.
Right.
What is the most nefarious thing that could be going on? I mean, what do you really need to watch out for in some of these requests and the ones you really should not accept?
Yeah. So what I do suggest is that, and people always ask like, what's the reason why you might get spam or kind of like ridiculous requests? A very real reason is they're trying to scrape email addresses, right? Because if I'm connected to you on LinkedIn, I can see your email address. So if I develop some software that comes up with spam LinkedIn accounts and then try to connect with everybody possible, I can then get email lists and then try to sell those. That's what they're trying to do. There's a couple other, again, nefarious things to do, but that's the most common. What I always suggest is, anybody that you just kind of know or have met in the offline world, I think bring them into your network. If you have what I call the aspirational people that are reaching out, again, they're in your industry, they are the kind of prospect you work with, they're in your city, great, bring them in. But especially for most of the people on the call today, like if somebody's from a foreign country, probably not. Right. I mean, I actually do speak in other parts of the world. You know, I have more of a global presence. So sometimes I will let those people in, but even then I will go through and be like, does this look like a real profile? And if it doesn't, don't. But I tell people it's your network, right? This is your Rolodex. And it should probably be bigger than it is now, but you get to make the final decision about who is or isn't in your network.
I've even, an article came across my inbox recently. There's actually the AI technology now where you can create a human-looking profile picture, and that can be completely a bot on LinkedIn or any other social media platform.
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, you can't tell the difference between that and a real picture.
Yeah.
I have been aspirationally trying to follow one of my favorite business writers for a long time, and he hasn't taken the bait. So,
well, as a writer myself, all you have to do is send an email stroking our ego, and we'll connect.
All right.
Hey, I love your stuff. Perfect. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Well, thank you very much, David Fisher, for your outstanding presentation today. I'm not sure if I mentioned you're the author of 2 books. Is that correct? Could you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, actually, I'm the author of 9.
9 books.
Not to quibble with you, but yeah, the only thing I want to say to everybody, make sure you just start doing something, whatever we had from today. But yeah, I'm the author of 9 books. The most recent is the second edition of LinkedIn, or Networking in the 21st Century on LinkedIn, that came out last week. So pretty excited about that. All of them are available on Amazon, and you can find more information about me right online.
Great.
On LinkedIn.
Great. Soon to be available from NAFA too, I think. We'll talk. So
sounds perfect.
All right.
Love it. I love it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much, David. Thanks for participating. This ends the webinar. Good day.